I wasn't expecting to be here today. I'm supposed to be in Liberia today. I got a bunch of stuff I need to do. But yesterday I had a fever, and this morning I woke up after taking like a 13-hour sleep. So I don't like going to Liberia. If there's any possibility, I'm going to have to drive back in the darkness. I hope with my vision is shot. And I don't really like running our car off the road. I did it one time recently because I had to drive in the dark, but it didn't work for me. So here I am. So here I am. I got a lot to talk about this morning in a very short period of time. One of the things I wanted to talk about is people are asking me to go back and explain the fundamentals. And some of this we've covered before, but I don't think it hurts to cover it again. What do I mean? Apparently, not everybody knows what Quiverfull is and what a quiver is. Now, if you look at Merriam-Webster. Why did I want to say Merriam-Webster? I had to catch myself. It talks about if you put in quiver and you look for it, it could be a noun or verb. And if it's a noun, it's a case for carrying arrows. Okay. It also says that it's the arrows in a quiver. If it's a verb, it's to shake or move with a slight trembling motion. That's what quivering means. But that's not what it means in the evangelical world, because in the evangelical world, you have all of these definitions that mean everything but what you think they mean. And I have heard this also called a bunch of other things, not just quiverful. It's been called the replenishment movement. It's also been called any variety of things. Okay, so give me a second while I'm pulling up links, and I just want to be able to be very clear about this because it is the thing that holds the arrows, and it talks about it in the Bible. Let me pull up the exact biblical quote of arrows. Bible. Yeah, I'm unprepared. Psalms 127, 3 through 5. I'm reading from the New International Version. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. They will not be put to shame when they contend with their opponents in court. So that's where it really comes from, is Psalm 127. Okay. If you read your Bible, that's actually what it says. And not everybody believes that. Some people think that that was some kind of overreach. I don't know. But that is the theology behind replacement theology, behind Quiverfull, all the different names that this lurks under. If you have ever seen the Duggars, they say they are not Quiverfull. They're just listening to God's commands about having as many children as God will give them. But that 127 Psalms, that's where they're getting that from. That is their whole thing, is an Old Testament verse. Jesus never said to do this. So quiverful itself means as many as a quiver will hold. And like we said, a quiver is that thing you put arrows in. And one of the usages it gives is a quiver full of children, meaning a good number of. That is it in a nutshell. That's also what replacement theology is. Replenishment theology, all kinds of different things they call it. Like I said, the Duggars refuse to say the word quiverful. They say they are not quiverful. Baloney. The Bates are full. Jill and David Rodriguez are quiverful. All of these people, if they have this huge amount of children, they're quiverful. And there are a lot of us that only have a few children that are quiverful. During my quiverful years, I only had my handful of children. And one of my best friends, or at least she was at the time, now I look back, it's like, what kind of a friend is this woman? used to say about me when she would introduce me to people from other churches. Here is my semi-heathen friend that only has 3 children. Not explaining that I had a huge pile of miscarriages. I tried to be Quiverfull. I'm the Quiverfull dropout because I could not make it happen. I was never going to make it happen because I had too much of a bleeding disorder and parts inside were all messed up. I didn't know until I had my hysterectomy. I had endometriosis just everywhere. They were in there for hours trying to clean that up. So if you're a woman and you're in a Quiverfull type church, people are going to shame you for that. They're going to tell you all these different reasons that you couldn't have children, instead of the fact that things never worked right down there. You have a bleeding disorder and you have all this endometriosis. They're going to say that's God punishing you for unconfessed sin. I'm going to say that is baloney, baloney, because I had problems from the time I had my first period. So I reject all of that nonsense. So there you go. A lot of these words that they come up with mean one thing and then they take it for something else. A good example is bitterness. Bitterness just means a taste, like sour, okay? Like sour is a taste, like sweet is a taste, bitterness is a taste. Some people like bitter things. I like bitter things. I like olives. I like martinis. I like things with that bitter, bitter taste sometimes. Not everybody likes that stuff, and that's fine. People are not bitter. That's one of the things that I don't like. They like to use the word bitter for anybody that opposes them. I got called bitter the other day, a bitter, jealous, fatty hater, I guess, which always makes me laugh because I'm not bitter and I'm not jealous. I'm definitely not jealous. I had the kind of religion they're talking about, and it did not serve me at all. It was agony the whole time I was part. I tried to make it work because I thought this was what God wanted. I'm going to quote Toby Mac's wife right now. She said, God loves the wild ones, and some of us are wild a little bit. And that is not the way we're pushed to be as women in non-denominational churches. In non-denominational high demand religions, we're told to be sweet, stay sweet, like we're Mormons, like we're fundamentalist Mormons. Stay sweet and smiling. Do everything your husband tells you to do, unless he's telling you to sin, and don't do it. You have to listen to him and consult him. There's a thing going on right now with I had to laugh with Doug Wilson of his church in Moscow, Idaho, and his college that he has, his little college. And I don't think it is, the last time I checked, I don't think it wasn't certified. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think you could transfer, um, I don't think that you could transfer the credits between it and, say, if you wanted to go to the University of Idaho. So I don't think they're officially credentialed. I could be wrong. They could be. But I saw the other day that his daughter is offering a class called Read the Room. I was hoping it would be a book, but it doesn't look like it. And it's all about decorating your house to please Jesus and God. And I swear, I'm thinking about signing up for this nonsense just so I can see it happen. Everything that's come out of Doug Wilson's group has been just awful. Just so much blaming and shaming. And I think that this will probably be the same because his other daughter's books seem to be set up to blame women. All of Doug Wilson's theology is set up to blame women for everything under the sun, things that can't help. And that's usually how these things go. So another thing with the jealousy, bitter thing is that's a way to shut down people who are talking about the abuse they suffered, be it sexual abuse, physical abuse, spiritual abuse, whatever kind of abuse. If you turn it around and blame the person for their own abuse, then you're doing what everybody does as part of non-denominational evangelicalism, especially when you start having things happen like such as example, Hillsong. Hillsong had a big scandal in the last few years involving their founder, was found to be somebody that had been doing SA of children for many years. And that came out, and the church fought it, fought it, fought it. They also pulled out bitterness and revenge and jealousy and various things in their fight against it. And they are hardly the only ones. I've watched the Southern Baptists do this thing when it has come out that there has been endemic abuse among their part. And they have just condemned the people who are coming forward, the abused. If you haven't watched the movie Spotlight, which was an excellent movie about spiritual abuse in the Catholic Church, I recommend you go watch it. And the Catholics are hardly the only ones guilty. There are all these other Christian religions throughout the US that have these kind of things going on, these kind of shenanigans. And victims need to be believed when there's that sort of thing going on. You believe the victim, do an investigation, and proceed from there. Because so many times in so many of these places, it's all just shoved under the rug. Okay, I didn't intend to go there with this. I'm going to tell you a tale out of my book that I'm working on that has been delayed several times because of a certain creator that loves to take people's books, their writings, and pretend that their stories are theirs. I'm going to go ahead and tell you the story of a man called Sue. Why is this important? Because this aligns with t-shirts I'm going to have printed out. I'm going to give them away through my channel, through my Twitter feed when I'm selling the book. I'm going to run these prize things. Cindy Kuntzman and I were talking about this yesterday, and it all goes back to the story of a man called Sue. Now, Sue wasn't really his name. He had a girl's name, and it was spelled like a girl's name. It was clearly a girl's name. He had a two-part girl's name, even worse. But much like the anti-hero in the song by Johnny Cash, this guy was kind of a jerk with zero sense of humor. I knew him pretty well because when we first joined the church, he was one of the elders. He was also one of the guys that actually founded our church, Possum Creek Church. He was a founder, and he did not have a sense of humor. If you threw a joke at him, he would look at you like you had kicked his dog and eaten the last slice of Wonder Bread. He would act like you had done some grievous sin to him. So I mostly avoided this guy. This guy was bad news, I thought. And he was married to a very nice lady who was not at all like him. And he came out of the hola yourself, cheapskate. I love the name. That's really funny. He had no sense of humor whatsoever. So every time I would run across him at our old church, I would come away with a frailing. I would be bruised up because he might say, "Hey, so-and-so, how's Sue? How's it doing? You know, I know you're involved in children's ministry. I was reading the other day that they're saying that the new age of when children start realizing that the world has bad things happening has been lowered to 9 years old." I was wondering what you think about that and how your children's ministry stuff relates to that. And do you even touch on that? We're like, no. If you were a good Christian mother, you would be isolating your child. Except he didn't say isolating. He would say be protective. You would be homeschooling, and your child would never, ever be exposed to the sin of this world. Dude, I just asked you about a statistic I read. And I was trying to have a conversation bridging with you over what you do because I was kind of thinking about teaching Sunday school, which was under his purview. So that was my typical type of interaction with this guy. Sue, I just avoided Sue until the men's softball team. He played softball. My husband played softball. And a lot of us wives would show up and praise the men. You're going to have to watch on. Oh, okay. I understand that and can't hear well. There's times I have to do that. I have to put these stupid things on to listen because my husband is obsessing over the Israel war, the war with Hamas. And I can't hear a damn thing when he starts that. So Sue was part of that team. And we'd be out there cheering. His wife never came, his very nice wife. And later I learned a number of things about them and how he left the Mennonite church, how his whole family turned their backs on him, about how when he was a teenager, when he did this, he was a joyous, wonderful guy. But apparently the years wore him down, his wife's infidelity, here I was getting ready to say that, infertility. And we did have a lot of infidelity at the old church. And everybody just justified it, said, well, it's not ungodly because XYZ. So Sue and his wife, Mary Sue, I'm going to call her, they didn't cheat, but you could just tell they had a miserable marriage. They hated each other's guts. It was pretty obvious after a while. So here we were cheering on the guys, and she never came. She never once came. The rest of us came and went. And I remember that we had a couple of years of softball, and this kept going on. And every year there would be a tournament that would take all day that all the guys would play in. And they were playing against other denominations. There was a Catholic team. There were a bunch of different kinds of Baptist teams. There were other churches that played in this league. There were Methodists. There were Presbyterians. The whole spectrum of religion in our little tiny town in Virginia. So we watched as they had these different tournaments, and churches would do things like have booths where they sold hot dogs, hamburgers, had a grill, did that sort of thing. We were the only church that did not have church t-shirts, did not have fancy t-shirts. Everybody else had them, said, my own old Baptist church, fake name, or Baptist church at the corner, Methodist church, biggest one in 5 counties, or whatever. And they would get sponsorship sometimes from different businesses in town would sponsor for them to have the t-shirts. So right before the 3rd tournament, they were having a meeting one time at the softball team thing. And I spoke up. I said, hey, why don't we have a fundraiser at this particular all-day tournament? And said, I volunteer to make pulled pork barbecue and coleslaw and sell pulled pork barbecue sandwiches all day. And we can use that money to get you guys t-shirts for next year. And I could go around and ask various businesses to sponsor us too. And we might be able to, come up with the money that way to have our own t-shirts. Do you know that Sue hopped all over me and said that fundraising was gambling, that it was sinful? And I was sinfully even thinking such a thing. He chewed me out, not with curse words, but with all this polite, stupid words that these people use. He chewed me out with the coded language, called me an apostate. He said that I was bitter and I didn't trust God, and that I was obviously too influenced with the world if I wanted to do something like a fundraiser. And I'm looking at him like, what? Because as far as I know, providing a service like that and getting the other ladies in the church involved maybe doing, cookies and other things. I didn't consider that gambling. I still don't consider it gambling. I consider it stepping up to try to meet a need since we were the only guys without matching t-shirts. And I realized in the grand scheme of things, matching t-shirts is pretty silly. And he told me what a silly woman I was. And I was so silly. I was focused on the external all the time. I've never forgot that. And I remember cringing away like this, cringing away and going, I'm so sorry. I wish now that I had flied the double birds at him, that I had flipped him the birds and was like, no, I'm doing it. Later, I had a bunch of people come to me and say, oh, I'm sorry he reacted to you that way. I think your idea is a great one. I'm like, well, I can't do it because he'll be right there. He'll be giving me the ice grog and calling all the furies of heaven down upon my sinful head if I were to make pulled pork barbecue. So I didn't do it. And the very next year, he'd quit the church. He had moved off to a stricter church. He said we'd gotten too loosey-goosey with our theology. And the church, immediately after he left, they ponied up the dough for us to have t-shirts for the softball team. So Cindy Kunzman has been pushing me to get shirts made to promote the book that say on there, Possum Creek Church. Sue would not approve. And I may well do that and then put about the book on the back. Because every time I think about this guy and what he wanted me to do and not do, I decided to do a little fundraising, I'm just like cringing away. And I still get those kind of people show up in my comments. Frequently, they'll show up and tell me how bitter, nasty, mean I am and everything else. Well, I'm just trying to point out that this type of evangelicalism has a body count. I know too many dead people when I've talked about healing and raising people from the dead and all the different weird little spiritual practices that they claim that I've seen no evidence actually work. I get called bitter. No, I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter. I'm better. I'm better. And I want all of you watching to be better. So that's my little rant on fundraising, but I have to throw this on the end because I get so many requests for money. I don't give out money. I'm sorry. First of all, I'm retired, so I'm living on a very small income here. Second of all, I'm not making anything from this, even yarn money. It is what it is. And if I made enough to buy yarn every now and then, I'm happy. I'm content. I have small needs. So it's not like I'm trying to get money. I used to run fundraisers through No Longer Quivering, and I had to stop that because people were exploiting that and were using it for bad purposes. And the same thing when I gave money through No Longer Quivering or even on my own. I had a friend that used to always hit me up for money, and I gave her money a couple of times because she had some serious needs, small amounts like $100, $200. And she started asking for stuff like money to go get a pedicure, money to go eat steak at a restaurant, just stuff like that. And I was like, I am not your ATM. I had to put a stop to that. So lately it's been happening again. I've been being hit up all the time for money from people. And like I said, if you're a friend or a family member in my real life that I know really well and you have a serious need, then yes, I will help out in some way. But if you're somebody that I don't have a big relationship with, it's not going to happen. I hope you get your money. I pray for you to have the abundance of heaven. God owns all the cattle on every hill, and he can fill up your wallet or your pot or whatever you want to call it. But it doesn't happen through me. It can't happen through me. I just can't do it. And number two, I can't literally do it right now. Those of you that watch me all the time, you know that's back in June when I fell down coming off the plane and came back to a house that was just a complete wreck. That one of the horrible things that happened was my cell phone fell out of my bag and disappeared to God knows where. That cell phone was linked to everything I do, two-factor authentication, and while I got a lot of stuff back, I was able to go in and reset few things. I didn't get everything. I didn't get my bank account that I keep my Mad Money in. I didn't get that back. I gotta go back to the States and reset that actually at the bank. So I don't even have the money to give you right now. All of you are asking for it. Just can't happen. I have no way to do it. And I hate to be like this, but because I've been work for money so hard for so long, I had to develop that. I had to develop that about 3 or 4 years ago because there are some people that just, it was constant and I just don't have the money for that anyway, or the patience any longer. Okay, you guys, I love you. Thank you for watching. I'm sorry if you've been hitting me up asking me to give to whatever. I'm sorry that can't happen right now because of the thing with my bank account. Yeah, June was kind of devastating for me. Everything you could think that was negative went down, and I'm just now starting to totally recover from that. Now, when I find things like the other day, I found sweetened condensed milk in my cabinet, and one of those. Before, it would make me shake and shiver to find weird stuff like finding my husband's underwear mixed in with my yarn. But now I'm kind of like, oh well, it is what it is. I got to find a use for sweetened condensed milk that doesn't raise my blood sugar. So maybe I'll save it and do something that would that Jim could bring to some type of church function when he goes for Bible study. Again, love you guys. Sir, I can't give money. It is what it is.